The most challenging thing you can do in bird watching is a big year. I'm doing one myself this year, and not only do I have to spot a bird, I also need to capture it on film or in a photo before I'm allowed to count it. My goal is 300 species. So far I've managed to record 260. While many birders slow down in the summer, I push on, trying to add as many species as possible to my list. Luckily, many of these species have been in northern Netherlands during this period, close to home. And so this video begins with a short trip to a pectoral sandpiper found just outside the city of Groningen. This wader, which comes from America and Siberia, is rare in the Netherlands, but still turns up a few times each year. Summer is the best season for waders here, but the weather that day felt anything but like summer. Strong winds and rain showers made filming much more difficult. The bird was seen on the construction site, wandering among many ruffs and wood sandpipers. Can you spot the bird in this shot? The pectoral sandpiper is just a bit smaller than the smallest female ruffs, with slightly lighter yellowish legs, a more distinct eyebrow stripe, and a much more sharply defined breast pattern. It also resembles the wood sandpiper. Same yellowish legs, streaked breast, and clear eyebrow stripe. If the breast pattern isn't easy to see, look at the silhouette. The wood sandpiper is much more slender than the pectoral sandpiper. To show more detail of the bird, I pulled out the teleconverter again.
Sadly, just after I got here, it started raining. So I'm waiting in the car for it to dry up. Hopefully get some better shots.
Filming from the car, resting the camera on a beanbag and adding plenty of stabilization in editing still gave some great footage, despite the strong winds. Enough to clearly see the plumage details. This species can turn up anywhere, from the coast to far inland, and can still be found in northwestern Europe until the end of October. So I challenge you to find one yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm currently walking around in a residential area to look for monk parakeets, which is one of 3 species of parakeets that can be seen in the wild in the Netherlands.
I'm not exactly sure what the idea here was, but it might just be that locals consider maintaining the small population of monk parakeets an important cause.
Most reports from this year came from the spawn surrounded with some trees, but I couldn't find any parrots there, so I'm now walking towards a spot where they were seen last year in July, 22 at a maximum, so hopefully I can find them there.
I searched the trees and listened carefully for parakeets, but sadly heard none. The only highlight was a very tame magpie that calmly walked right up to me.
In the meantime, I've arrived back at the spot I started, but en route haven't seen or heard any parrots. Now on closer inspection I noticed that most reports are from the winter season, so it could be that they are more mobile now at the moment, not bound to this area anymore, or that they are just silently chilling in treetops, making them almost impossible to find. Well, better luck next time.
In the previous video you saw that I had my eye on a redback shrike nest, and I mentioned that in this video we check how they were doing. Well, here it is. Time to celebrate, because no fewer than 4 chicks have hatched and were being fed constantly by both parents. By now the chicks had grown so much that they could barely fit all in the nest. Eventually all 4 fledged successfully, a beautiful success for the redback shrike parents. The longer I've been bird watching, the more I've come to appreciate the summer months. The temperature is often perfect and the light can be beautiful, making for great opportunities to film birds. Since I don't have the time to go out into the field every day, I focus during the peak of spring migration on the rarer species. That means there are still some gaps in my year list that summer can nicely fill, especially when there's an extra daddy day thanks to grandparents on vacation. A perfect moment to visit a white-winged tern in Friesland with the kids. The bird could be seen nicely from the road, meaning I could stay close to the car. It didn't take long before we saw the tern flying past. The white-winged tern is oddly enough best identified by its black underwing coverts, unlike the pale grey of the black tern. Of course, the upper wings are much wider, which is where the bird gets its name. Because of the fixed breeding population of whiskered terns around the Zuid-Laardermeer, the white-winged tern is now the rarest of the 3 marsh terns in the Netherlands, the third being the black tern. Depending heavily on weather conditions in Europe in spring, some years see many more than others, and it's also an occasional breeder here. This year was relatively poor, with no confirmed breeding cases that I'm aware of, but even in a poor year, they can still be seen here and there. Another gap in the year list filled, and the kids, they had a great time watching the big tractors and horses in the fields. A species that wasn't new for me, but is exceptionally difficult to film, especially in the north of the Netherlands, is the sitting cisticola. So when I heard that a bird found just 20 minutes from home could be viewed well with the right approach, I decided to head over there with Remco. The lucky thing was, the area was freely accessible. Still, it took quite a while before we found the bird. During our first hour there, it stayed silent, and finding a skulking bird in thick vegetation is no easy task. After an hour, it finally began to call, giving us an idea of where to search. Carefully scanning revealed the bird sitting in the vegetation. After some initial footage, it decided it was time to attract the female and began endless long flights over the area. Amazing to watch, especially from so close, but not exactly practical if you want quality footage for your archive. After about half an hour of non-stop display flights, the bird occasionally came down and even sang from within the vegetation. Finally, really good footage of the sitting cisticola. Here are the best clips, and then we move on to the next species. The following week, with grandparents still on vacation, we went to see a black stork in a pond in Drenthe. With a cup of juice, some sandwiches and fruit, we hopped back into the car. This wasn't exactly tense. The bird was already foraging in the water when we arrived. Unlike its white cousin, the black stork loves to stand with its legs in the water. It also lives a much more secretive life, mainly in large forest areas, where, despite its size, it can be tricky to observe. This, combined with its size, striking black and white plumage and red bill and legs, makes it one of my favorites. It's also a frustrating species, sometimes very hard to twitch. You'll see a report online of one in a field, but by the time you arrive, it's already gone. Experience shows that in wetland areas, they're easier to twitch, and once again, that proved true. A solid tip for any twitchers watching. This bird turned out to be ringed, but because of the distance and the light conditions, it was unfortunately impossible to read it. If anyone has managed to read it, I'd be very interested to hear. Later in this video, I'll have a dream encounter with this species, but first, it's time for this.
So yesterday a long-legged buzzard was found in Northeast Groningen, sitting on a field. This morning it couldn't be refound, but now some birders went looking again, and they have found it. So I'm on my way. I had just finished dinner at my parents-in-law, and it is an half an hour drive. Let's hope we get there in time. Yes, got it. It's pretty far out in the field, but I got it. Nice.
The long-legged buzzard is a true mega rarity in the Netherlands, with only 10 previously accepted records, of which just 3 were twitchable. The first twitchable bird was seen in the Oostvaardersplassen from the 5th to the 10th of September 2000. The second was a long stayer on the Maasvlakte, present in the autumns and winters from 2013 through 2016. I saw that bird on the same day as I saw my very first Arctic warbler, September 25th, 2013. The third twitchable bird stayed mainly just across the German border in July and August 2018, occasionally crossing into the Netherlands. The long-legged buzzard is slightly larger and longer-winged than the common buzzard, making it look more like a rough-legged buzzard. The distribution of light and dark markings is also more similar to the rough-legged buzzard, with the darkest markings on the belly and thighs, instead of on the breast, as in common buzzard. The species comes in several color morphs, but the best known and easiest to identify is the rufous morph, a plumage our common buzzard almost never shows. This rufous morph has a reddish-brown thigh area and an orange tail that becomes wider towards the base. The wing edges and carpal patches are strikingly dark, whereas in pale common buzzards, these are usually just small commas. Juveniles, which are much more likely to occur as vagrants, tend to be paler, with more white in the underwing coverts, a white breast and head, and a slightly paler tail. Occasionally, the long-legged buzzard flies with its wing held slightly raised, a silhouette that can resemble a marsh harrier. The largest subspecies we're seeing here breeds in southeastern Europe and farther east into the Asian steppes. Unfortunately, during the time I could stay, this bird remained on the ground. It would occasionally make a short dash for a mouse, but I never saw it fly. The following day, around midday, it took off and was never seen again. But the mega rarities in northern Netherlands weren't done yet.
Willem and I have just arrived in the IJsselmeerkeeg because another mega has been found, a white-tailed plover, a white-tailed lapwing. Let's see if we can find it.
Luckily, the bird was still in view when we arrived, so we could join the dozens of other birders already watching.
Vliegt.
Links, rechts.
Rechts.
Ter hoogte van de bovenste. Ga omhoog, ga omhoog.
Ja. Oh jee, dat gaat wel de verkeerde kant op. Ja.
Ik zie hem nu weer.
Ja, van ons afvliegen nog steeds naar rechts.
We got it, just in time. It has flown all the way out of the area. Let's hope it will return.
They might just as well have called the white-tailed lapwing the yellow-legged lapwing. Just look at those bright yellow legs. Even at around 500 meters, that leg color really pops. This species breeds in Asia east of the Caspian Sea, with a few breeding sites westwards into Turkey. Unlike our familiar northern lapwing, the white-tailed lapwing prefers more vegetation. You find it less often in open fields and more around vegetated pools or small streams. This bird had been found a few days earlier near Leeuwarden during a survey, but was initially kept secret. There are also 10 previously accepted records of this species in the Netherlands, but more of them were twitchable than for the long-legged buzzard, though they usually didn't stay as long as the twitchable long-legged buzzards. This was already my third, after the bird at Vogelmeer in the Kennemerduinen in 2010 and the bird near Den Helder in 2014. That last one I only watched very briefly, because just as we arrived, the first ever American robin for the Netherlands was found and we had to rush off. The fact that the white-tailed lapwing doesn't like open plains might also explain its restless behavior here, and why it flew off about 1.5 hours after being discovered, landing out of sight in reed-fringed pools. Unfortunately for us birders, that spot wasn't visible. Back in 1999, a bird of this species also spent a short time in the same area. After catching our breath from the rush of adrenaline, we waited patiently, hoping the white-tailed lapwing might return. The IJsselmeerkeeg is one of the most beautiful birding areas in the Netherlands, rich in waders, raptors and other water birds, including these exotic-looking ruddy shelducks, a few of which turn up here each year to molt. In recent years, the numbers seem to have been a bit lower than before. The birds we see here are descendants of escaped individuals, so you could argue about whether they should really be counted as wild. In their natural range, stretching from the Black Sea all the way to China, the species is migratory, so it's not impossible that some truly wild birds are present in Europe. The problem is you can't tell the two populations apart. For now, they count it as wild species, unless of course it's a bird with a captive ring, which counts as an escape. We also kept an eye on this young white-tailed eagle. It was circling in the area where the white-tailed lapwing had been seen, and it might just flush the lapwing, giving the twitchers who arrived later a chance to see it as well. Unfortunately, the eagle didn't flush the lapwing, and once it was out of sight, our attention shifted back to the birds still around, now including a fine Caspian tern, another species I hadn't yet picked up during spring migration and had saved for the summer. It's such a pleasure to have a teleconverter again. No, it won't give you National Geographic or BBC quality footage, but it does let you get even small birds at great distance on film in an identifiable way. If a least sandpiper ever walks by at this range, you'll be glad to have verifiable documentation. The last species we gave attention to at the north side of the area was this black-winged stilt, feeding nicely in the foreground. With a wet spring in Spain, we could expect far fewer of these gorgeous birds in the Netherlands this year, but I still saw a freshly fledged juvenile in the same area, meaning that there was yet another successful breeding case this year.
The white-tailed plover still hasn't returned, but I've added 2 extra species to the year list. A Caspian tern was hunting, and later it sat down so I could film it, so that was also pretty nice. But then a red-necked phalarope was reported just a bit south of where we were standing, so we rushed over there and also get that one. Haha, nice.
The southern part of the area is currently very dry, with water only far in the back. As a result, the birds were very far away and there wasn't enough light to use the teleconverter. Still, a red-necked phalarope is recognizable even at a long distance by a distinctive silhouette, behavior and the red neck that rules out a red phalarope. After this beautiful Lauwersmeer adventure, with 3 more yearticks, we returned to a place very close to home, because in my local patch, the Olnander, a black stork had been found. I saw the report online and sent it to the Olnander group chat. Remco checked after work and confirmed it was still there. The next morning I had an hour between dropping the kids at daycare and starting my workday, so I went to take a quick look. By taking a tactical position and waiting calmly, this bird came beautifully close. Soaking wet from lying in the damp grass, but extremely satisfied, I could start my workday. Summer is far from over, and while you're watching this, I'm already editing the next adventure I had with Willem in Zeeland. Don't forget to subscribe for another mega adventure with rare and beautiful birds. And help this video spread by hitting the like button. See you next time.